To start today first by acknowledging the fact that that I cannot work these slides very well. One moment, please. There you go. That I'm speaking after several really passionate stories. All of us are here today because there are personal stories of those individuals and families that have rare disease that have touched us. And for many of us that work in rare diseases in common, we know that these stories are not unique, unfortunately, that there are many things shared behind them. We oftentimes think of this as a public health challenge of rare diseases as a whole. As an overview, sometimes we will use some of these statistics to describe this public health challenge. There are over 10,000 different rare diseases, but only less than 5% of them have an approved therapy. We understand that this is not an issue just to rare diseases alone. It can take 10 to 15 years for development of a therapy. And oftentimes, 9 out of 10 therapeutic candidates that will enter a clinical trial will end up failing to be safe and effective. Now, when we think about this as a whole, what I wanted to draw some attention to was really just some understanding behind this public health challenge and understanding what rare diseases are. What are rare diseases? When we talk about what's rare, different countries classify rare differently. In the US, we use what's called an absolute prevalence, or less than 200,000. In other countries, they have different numbers. Sometimes we use prevalence rates, so in the EU, less than 1 in 2,000, or there is no legislative definition. Oftentimes, when we talk about diseases, our classifications and definitions of diseases can vary. As an example, 11 beta-hydroxylase deficiency is one disease with 9 different names. And in addition to that, this example here on the bottom right is a diagram that just shows 2 different diseases with over 90 different genes associated and connected with them. This is for retinitis pigmentosa and Leber congenital amaurosis. So when we talk about these diseases, we can be talking about 2 diseases, or this can really depend on the purpose that we're trying to talk about these for. If we're talking about these from the angle of gene therapies, this might be 100 diseases. So our definitions really align to our different research or clinical goals that we may have. This is part of the reason why rare diseases are not always included in standard terminologies and codes. And it's hard oftentimes to find information about them. But in addition to that, new rare diseases are identified every year. At the time of the Rare Diseases Act of 2002, there were thought to be 6,000 rare diseases. Since then, our understanding of rare diseases in the last 20 years has only grown. We now know over 7,000, close to 7,300 diseases that have a known molecular basis, a gene that might be resulting in a mutation that then leads to this disease. Our understanding grows continuously over time. And as part of that, this makes it a really complex question when we say, well, how many rare diseases are there? As this number is constantly changing over understanding of the science. There is growing consensus that there are over 10,000 rare diseases right now. And these are 2 examples of recent reports and studies that have looked at this question. Part of the problem here is that there's still a gap between research knowledge and understanding about rare diseases and available therapies. So this diagram here, this graph shows the rate that publications of our understanding of rare diseases have grown has not been met by the number of therapies that have been approved, either in the US or in the EU. Part of this problem is what we call a translational science problem. And that's part of NCATS's mission, is really to turn research observations into health solutions through translational science. When we talk about rare diseases in common, oftentimes one of the main issues that affect them is that many rare diseases have an extremely low prevalence. We use the general definition less than 200,000, but a large proportion of them have less than 1 in 1 million, or less than 300 people affected in the country. As an example, that picture over there shows a patient with progeria, which is thought to have less than 1 in 20 million in the world. This means there's a need for scalable solutions in rare diseases research. We can't solve this by just focusing on one disease at a time. We have to think about all 10,000 diseases and thinking of where we can find groups of them to create therapies. And this goes back to another issue in rare diseases that's also common with translational science, in that they're not focused just on any one organ, disease, or discipline. There are many different causes behind rare diseases. The majority are thought to be genetic, directly caused by changes in genes or chromosomes, but there are a number of different rare diseases with different causes, infections, cancers, etc. These 2 issues, this heterogeneity of different disease causal factors and etiologies, as well as this extremely low prevalence, will lead to limited commercial interest and market incentives in rare diseases. And in thinking about how to bring treatments to all rare diseases, we really need to think about some of our translational science principles. So I want to share a couple of programs as examples of what we're trying to do at the NIH. In terms of transforming team science and the people that we have in rare diseases research, a long-standing program is the Rare Diseases Clinical Research Network, which brings together clinicians, researchers, patient advocacy groups, and focuses on multiple diseases at a time. In addition to that, we're also leveraging new technologies. A program called the Platform Vector Gene Therapy Program, or PAVE-GT, is a pilot program that seeks to increase the efficiency of clinical trial startup by using the same gene delivery system and manufacturing methods for multiple rare disease gene therapies. In addition to that, we're looking at the process as a whole, in addition to technologies. The Bespoke Gene Therapy Consortia, which involves the Foundation for the NIH, the FDA, a number of industry partners, as well as patient advocacy groups, is focusing both on those different platforms, as well as some of the questions about manufacturing, about preclinical innovation, as well as thinking about regulatory pathways. And as the last thing to end on, I wanted to focus on big creativity and innovation in the projects that we're having. In terms of the somatic cell genome editing program, which is a common fund project at the NIH, this is really looking at trying to expand the availability of genome editors across many diseases. And it's about to enter its next 5-year phase, starting with clinical trials that will target gene editors across multiple diseases. What I'm providing for you today is just a snapshot of some of the different ways that the NIH is trying to bring together different people, new technologies, and looking at the entire process of how we can potentially bring new treatments to all these different rare diseases as a whole. And I just wanted to end on inviting you to come to Rare Disease Day at NIH in February next year. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk to you.